Hello and welcome back to the Premier League years here on FM22. We are into season 10 of our deep dive simulation for the 2031-32 season. If you haven't seen the last video that went up, it was actually a 10-year recap on the save. And if you're new to the series, it's a pretty good start-off point just to get an idea of how the teams have been getting on, what they look like, especially heading into this upcoming season. So do go and check it out. I'll try and remember to link it in the description. But if you just want a quick rundown, Manchester City, as you can see, defending champions, 4 straight Premier League titles under the management of Vincent Kompany. Chelsea, once again, the nearest competitors to City. Then we've got the so-called other members of the Big Six, which hasn't always been the case in this save, actually. But Sheffield United have been definitely the most fun side to watch so far, watching their rise all the way up to being European contenders. However, we do say at the other end goodbye to Brentford, Blackburn and Brighton for this upcoming season, after they only just came up, all 3 of them heading straight back down. But let's take a look at how the 2031-32 season shapes up. We already know 2 sides that have been promoted because we saw them in the recap video. We welcome back Bournemouth for another season under Eddie Howe for, I think, the 3rd time that Eddie Howe has been Bournemouth manager, combining real life with the simulation. If we take a look at how they got on, they actually won the championship. So a 2nd trophy in the Bournemouth cabinet in this save after they won the championship title 3 years ago. So they'll be hoping that a theme continues here in that they stayed up the only other time they won the championship. They are very much hoping that sticks. The 2nd returning side, anyway, that we have to the Premier League is Fulham, still under Josip Ilicic, who took over during their last relegation season a little while ago. That was 2026. I think we've seen them back since. No, we haven't seen them back since then. That's actually caught me a little off guard. Fulham spent 4 seasons down in the Championship. I should remember this considering I've literally just done the recap video. But they missed out in the playoffs on the first 2 occasions. In fact, the first 3 occasions they missed out in the playoffs. But, well, thankfully for them, ended up 2nd in the Championship last season. So they get an automatic promotion back to the top flight after 4 or 5 years away. Josip Ilicic brings them back. And the 3rd team to return to the top flight is West Ham, unsurprisingly. Though the slightly surprising thing was they had to come through the playoffs in order to do it. We knew that they came 3rd from the recap video after finishing dead last in the 29-30 season, which was kind of surprising, though they had already gone down once, which kind of took the edge off it. But we'll take a look at how West Ham got on in the playoffs. We knew they had Crystal Palace in the semi-finals, so we know that they've come through that, but we don't know who they've beaten in the final. So taking a look down the bottom there at their schedule, we see that they ended up overcoming Crystal Palace 4-3 in a very exciting semi-final. And a new side that we have not seen yet in the save, making the Championship playoff final, Sunderland. And actually, Sunderland had the lead and they equalised as well. Aaron Hickey ended up getting sent off for West Ham. It went to extra time and West Ham still somehow found a way to win with a 92nd early goal in extra time from Bashkim Kasemi. I think Nascimento missed a penalty. He did. So he missed a penalty that could have been a hat-trick in front of 90,000 people at Wembley. But Sunderland awfully close to making it back to the Premier League for what would be the first time in this save. Doesn't quite happen. We welcome back West Ham. So the other thing to do is to check out the transfer window so far in the very early parts of the summer. And it's noticeable that, 3 of the first 4 transfers are ones that have gone down in the last 2 days, involving Chelsea, Manchester City and Newcastle. So we are going to jump into those. We see Chelsea making the for now, biggest transfer at £92 million for Lazio player Irondino? Not 100% sure how I'm meant to pronounce that really. Is a Brazilian winger, elite level player. And you look at these statistics, he looks absolutely incredible. The 10 finishing's a little bit of an off-put, but I think in FM22, finishing's weirdly not that important of a stat, to be honest. He's ended up playing 120 league games for Lazio in Serie A after joining from América Mineiro in Brazil. Not a Brazilian side I've previously heard of, so maybe they have a pretty good academy. You have to let me know about that one, but I was not aware of them previously. So we'll see how Arandinho can get on. Is classed as the star player. We know that they lost Romelu Lukaku as he decided to retire, or is retiring rather, in the next few days. So he's potentially the replacement there, though more of a winger. We go just one transfer down and find what actually might be the biggest transfer of the window so far, as it could rise to £94 million. For now, it's just the measly 79 million from Manchester City to buy Roma defensive midfielder Massimo Fortunato, just 21 years of age, and looks like an absolutely star midfielder. You almost want to play him slightly further forward just to get that passing and vision really working. But as a deep line playmaker, he is going to be an exceptional player. I mean, Manchester City and Chelsea, the rich get richer in this situation. He actually came through at Roma, so they have made a ridiculously good profit on him, on a player who has played exceptionally well in the last couple of seasons. So Fortunato will be a very interesting player to keep an eye on. Probably won't show up too much statistically, but we know he's there. And then moving on to the other big transfer of the summer so far, £59 million, and it's Newcastle again. They love a big transfer. It's a goalkeeper this time. They've gone through quite a few keepers in the past 2 seasons. Osvaldo Fernando joins from PSV Eindhoven. Started with Braga. Had a very, very cheap move to PSV. They have done brilliantly. And he has been ridiculously good. 15 clean sheets and just 28 conceded last season. He had a season where he conceded 22 in 32. Okay, I know PSV are good, but I think this guy... Oh, okay, yes. Osvaldo Fernando is unbelievable. Newcastle have certainly got themselves a star goalkeeper. And we're going to look at the goalkeeper situation, because we did look at it in the recap video. And it was kind of a little bit weird. I do need to go back to sorting by general info and positions. So they've still got an Onana, but he's transfer listed. Sakir is still here as well, but he's now requested a transfer after the signing of Fernando. And then they have a 27-year-old Chinese goalkeeper in Liu Xiaoxiang, who actually came in from Feyenoord. So a lot of keepers coming in from Holland. We actually don't find another transfer until we scroll down a full page worth, and then we actually find newly promoted West Ham bringing in freshly relegated Brentford player Faustino Angerin, the English central midfielder, or attacking midfielder rather. He does join from Brentford for an initial 30.5, could rise as high as 37 million. A player who Chelsea released in 2025, and then he's worked his way through Germany, as so many young English players have done in recent times. Ended up heading to Brentford, got 1 Premier League season in, played actually reasonably well to be fair to him, and does get a second chance with West Ham. Is listed as an important player, so we'll see him play. We'll see if he can be the creative threat that West Ham want him to be. Going down a little bit further, we find Leicester with their biggest transfer early on in the summer, with a potential transfer of 35.5 million for Blackburn's Mario Assunção, a Portuguese attacking midfielder who was obviously relegated with Blackburn last season. Actually came through at FC Nantes, and quite a cheap move to Blackburn, actually. They did quite well picking him up for just under £9 million and end up making an over £20 million profit on him. So that's gone well for them. Obviously, he had a really good season in the Championship. Not so good in the Premier League, but I mean, certainly not bad. So we'll see how he gets on at a more established club in Leicester. I've just gone one too far back there. If we look a little bit further down, not too much further, Wolves. And this is where a lot of West Ham's money has come from. For them to then bring in Angerin. They've sold Renan to Wolves, a Brazilian centre-back / left-back who was at West Ham for a very long time, actually. They picked him up for 22 million from Palmeiras. He's been up and down with them. His Premier League form hasn't been anything standout, but it's not been terrible. Didn't play a lot in the Championship, actually. But West Ham still spin a profit on him, actually. Potentially up to 34.5 million. This might be one of the biggest transfers we've honestly seen Wolves make. They haven't done a whole lot. And they are certainly not safe from relegation potential. So we'll see how that ends up going along. We see Noni Madueke has left Spurs, but stays in the Premier League, heading to Liverpool. So that's an interesting transfer, moving between two Champions League fighting clubs. Of course, he was at Manchester United earlier on in the save. He hasn't had one standout season yet. He's just been average to decent. I guess the Liverpool hope is that he does stand out. Spurs lose a lot of money on him, but they bought him as he was approaching his prime, and they sell him as he's getting towards 30 years old. He's still a good player. He just needs that one breakout season to happen for him. Maybe it happens at Liverpool. Who knows? We will get to see, though. As we see, Jens-Petter Haug is back in the Premier League. Was a long-time Tottenham player. Very brief stint at Juve. Returns with Sheffield United because they're doing it again with their tactic of bringing in players who are in their early 30s, who are still able to contribute really well, whilst being a little bit older and experienced, to mix them in with some of the other players they've got, like Jebbison, Anon, and Shortire. So we'll see how Howe gets on. Hasn't played consistently for a very long time, really. I mean, you're talking a good 4 years since he was playing consistently. So hopefully for Sheffield United's sake, he can pick it back up again. We see Angelo Stiller becomes a Premier League player. Manchester United's biggest move of the window so far for the 30-year-old German midfielder coming in from Bayern Munich. He actually got released by Bayern, went to Hoffenheim, and then Bayern bought him back for £29 million 4 years later. And he had inconsistent appearances for 3 years and then just kind of vanished, but played well when he played. Like, he was really good when Bayern decided to play him. So £24 million honestly might not be a bad move for Manchester United if they give him a reasonable amount of football to play. We'll see if we can find any other teams that we have not mentioned yet as we scroll down. We're not finding very much else so far. There's been a few really big transfers. Sheffield United with another move for a 30-plus player in Nikola Milenkovic coming in from Newcastle. So this is really a heavy theme for Sheffield United of experienced players that they want to bring in for a year or two just to keep them higher up the table. You see, Abel Ruiz leaves Arsenal. He's heading to Southampton. So they are looking for a top-tier striker. They sold, I can't remember his name. I know his first name was James. Well, they had a reasonably decent new-gen English striker who headed to Dortmund either a season or two ago. So they decide to give Abel Ruiz a chance. He did net 99 times for Brighton in a 7-year span and was pretty impressive in the Premier League then. Is now into his 30s, but still a fairly prolific striker in his day, or on his day. So we'll see if Abel Ruiz can re-find some form with Southampton. Other than that, the only other one we can find as we scroll down is Reading, with their biggest move of the summer so far being £8.5 million for Dutch winger Zidkiga Lane. Very, very tricky, quick winger. Flair is reasonably high, very good with the ball at his feet, maybe not great with the final ball and the sort of final production though. But we'll see how he gets on for Reading. Will be a regular starter, so hopefully he can produce and keep Reading in the Premier League for another season. That's how it looks very early on in the summer window. We're going to jump forward to the beginning of September, so get out the summer transfer window. We'll see what other moves have gone down, and we'll take a look at the Premier League table. There'll be roughly 3 games in at that point. We pick the season back up on the 3rd of September, and as we normally do at this point, we're going to take a quick look at how the group draws have gone in the European club competitions. We start with the Europa Conference League, Sheffield United being the Premier League representative for this season. They're drawn into Group H, where they will play Omonia from Cyprus, Sporting Lisbon, and Inverness Caledonian Thistle. That's a weird one, but okay. Congratulations, Inverness, on this. I think Sheffield United's competition for this group is certainly Sporting Lisbon. We do see Amanoia Nicosia. I really don't know how to say that first bit. I'm just going to call them... I don't want to call them Nicosia because I'm pretty sure there's a few teams from there. So I'm going to just call them O. I'm going to say that Sporting Lisbon will top the group, Sheffield United second, the O team in third, and Inverness for fourth. The Europa League will have 2 Premier League sides in it. They will be Liverpool and Tottenham. You can see right at the top there, Liverpool drawn into Group A as they will take on Ferencvárosi of Hungary, Standard Liège of Belgium, and FK Partizan Belgrade of Serbia. We have seen Partizan Belgrade do reasonably well in a couple of seasons in Europe. So I think they might push for second maybe, and then Standard Liège, I'd say, the other team to possibly push for that second spot. I think Liverpool should probably go 6 for 6 in this group, to be honest. I'm going to go Liverpool. I'm going to say Partizan Belgrade for second, Liège third, and Ferencvárosi in fourth. If we scroll down, we find Tottenham's group is Group H, so right at the other end, as they will have Feyenoord, Stade Rennes, and Steaua Bucuresti in their group. Again, possibly Spurs should top this. It's definitely a much trickier group than Liverpool got, but I think Spurs can top it. I'm going to say ahead of Rennes. Feyenoord have been pretty good in this save so far, but I'm going to have them for third and to drop down into the Europa Conference, and FCSB to be fourth in that group. And then finally the Champions League, where there are 4 representatives from the Premier League. We start with Arsenal, who came fourth in the Premier League last season, and they have got a very tricky group in PSG, Inter Milan, and Slavia Prague. I think this is the second time that we've seen Slavia Prague get a real group of death. So they are not enjoying actually becoming Champions League regulars, which is a bit odd. I think this may well be how the group looks by the end. I might actually put Inter Milan ahead of PSG, just because I think Inter Milan have actually done a bit better in the Champions League than PSG have in this save. So I'll go Inter, PSG, Arsenal for third and to drop down, and then Slavia Prague in fourth. Manchester City, Premier League champions, Champions League runners-up last year. They will take on Wolfsburg, OGC Nice, and RSC Anderlecht in their group. I think this should be a fairly simple group to top for them. I'm going to say Wolfsburg for second, Nice third, Anderlecht fourth. I think it's going to be close between Wolfsburg and Nice. But we know that Wolfsburg have picked up quite a bit of money in a transfer or two, so maybe they've been able to build a fairly decent squad. We scroll down a little bit further, we find Group F contains Chelsea, Champions League holders right now and runners-up in the Premier League. They will have a group consisting of RB Leipzig, Shakhtar Donetsk and Besiktas. Again, a group that I think Chelsea should be topping. I'm going to go... I seem to be keeping them in order right now, which is a little bit boring. But I'm going to go RB Leipzig for second, Shakhtar for third and Besiktas in fourth. Finally, we get down to Group H, which contains Manchester United, who finished third in the Premier League last season. They have a group with Atletico Madrid, Ajax and Torino, which is a very interesting Italian team to see here. I'm going to go Atletico Madrid to top the group, but I'll give Manchester United second place with Ajax third and Torino in fourth. I do want to have a quick look at how Torino actually got on. Managed by Vincenzo Montella, who we've seen a couple of times in the Premier League. They got third place, so a very impressive season from Torino last time out. And this now advances us on to the Premier League and the summer transfer window in the majority section of it after the league ticks over. And you can see there is one massive standout transfer from everything else. Manchester United splashing the big money to bring Jude Bellingham back to England quite a long time after he left. This is a good 10 or 11 years after he left Birmingham for Dortmund. But £104 million. Bellingham now 28 years old, but he will be 28 for the whole season. Has been at Borussia Dortmund since 2020. So it is 11 years since he headed off to Germany and with Dortmund. He makes his return. Hasn't made his Premier League debut yet. But this is the thing for Bellingham. He has never played in the Premier League. He's only played Championship football. So this is going to be very, very intriguing. Obviously, a superstar player at Dortmund. I suppose without ever necessarily smashing anything. I mean, 7.4s a little while ago. Was apparently gradually getting worse, but should be hitting his prime at this point. Man United, they know they need to start doing something in this save. Finishing third and fourth every year is not going to get the Man United fans excited. They want to push for some titles. They bring in Jude Bellingham in order to try and do it. The second biggest move is actually a player out, and it is a player that I actually forgot to mention in Sheffield United's youngsters. Mark. Yeah, just Mark. Well, apparently Mark Romano, as that hover over just showed, has headed to Bayern Munich, but Sheffield United have picked up a transfer fee of £51 million. It's not the biggest profit, because they did pay 44.5 just to bring him in the first place from Manchester City. But it is still a bit of a profit, and it's still a lot of money for Sheffield United to pick up. We'll see if they've particularly done anything with it, or if the transfers they made early in the summer were the ones they wanted to make. They don't appear again in the first page of this list, so potentially they're holding on to that money. We see Kekai has left Aston Villa for a sum of around £50 million. He heads to Arsenal just as a squad player, played over 120 Premier League games for Villa, was actually pretty good in a couple of seasons, but tailed off last year. But he has actually scored already for Arsenal this season, which is more than he'd done for the past 2 seasons for Villa. So he may be a defender, but pops in with a goal. Arsenal's money coming in from them selling Devin Wrench, who heads to Newcastle. Considered a centre-back, can play CDM and right-back as well. He's 28 years of age, so that seems to be the popular age for transfers right now. Newcastle's certainly splashing the cash without necessarily bringing much of it back in. Hasn't played very well in his first 3 games at the club. But a pretty big move there, as they've also brought in Wilfred Singo. Now 30 years old, can play right back, right mid, or even wing back. Considered an attacking fullback by the media. Newcastle are going They're going in on this, aren't they? I think they might have had quite a bad start though, because Singo, in his one game, got a really bad rating. So potentially they've had a pretty slow start. We see Florentino Luis leaving Manchester United as he heads out to Italy with Juventus. West Ham are spending some money. What was their... They had a reasonably big transfer here, didn't they? Yeah, Faustino Angerin in the early part of the summer. And then following Balogun, mere like 3 days later, joins for £42 million from Celtic. So Celtic bringing in quite a lot of money there and a big profit on their part. 15 goals for him in the Scottish Premier League last season. He hasn't scored a mind-boggling amount for the Scottish Premier League. Though I think Scotland is becoming a more competitive league by seeing the likes of Inverness playing European football. So maybe it's not that bad, but he is 30 years old and he was only scoring sort of just into double figures in Scotland. Is now considered their number one striker as well. So let's see how Balogun gets on. He has already scored a goal, which is a positive start, but I'm interested on that one. Liverpool's biggest transfer in the second part of the window, coming late on, Elvis Jose, a 24-year-old Brazilian left-back from Bayern Munich. Physically, very fast, very agile, technically solid and mentally pretty darn good as well, is going to be their new left-back, £41.5 million. He had just the one season at Bayern Munich where he kind of played about half the games, coming in from AS Monaco. Again, another Brazilian team that I'm not familiar with, Sanguero, who don't appear to be they might not even be in the third tier. So he's had a heck of a rise in his career. That's quite a fun story to see. We have more players going out. We see a Chelsea Manchester City player transfer, and it's Luke Thomas, now 30 years of age, heading to the champions Manchester City from the Champions League winners Chelsea. That is very interesting. We saw Conor Gallagher make the same move 2 or 3 seasons ago. Might be more than that, actually. Now Luke Thomas makes that same transfer. And Manchester City also bring in Jeremy Frimpong, again, another 30-year-old fullback. Considered the regular starter for Man City. We'll see how long he ends up staying. He's coming from Bayer Leverkusen, who make a decent profit off him after getting a lot of usage out of him through the years. So that is quite interesting. You see, Le Carpentier, who went to Fulham, is now actually sold. He's going to Malaga. So that was Fulham's goalkeeper, I believe. So who are they starting at this point? They're going with 24-year-old... No, not this guy. I was going to say this guy, but it's not. It's not Ricardo Silva either. Actually, I don't know who it is. I think it is Volta. Or Volta. He is going to be the goalkeeper because the window is closed and they haven't got a new goalkeeper since selling the Carpentier. So that's an interesting situation. Actually, a transfer that I think was rumoured during the recap video did happen a little bit later on, actually. Yusufa Moukoko, gone from Manchester United, heading to Nîmes for just under £40 million, is quite an interesting one. Brighton getting some good money. Obviously, one of the relegated teams, as Prince Ofori will head to Aston Villa. Listed as a powerful centre-back, certainly not wrong with 15 strength. Looks like a reasonable player. I mean, his heading and tackling are not great, nor is his jumping reach. Probably want to almost be playing him as a CDM or just a centre mid in general, to be honest. He's good with the ball at his feet, which obviously is kind of the expected nowadays with centre-backs. It's quite an interesting transfer here. Played 28 times for Brighton last season in the Prem. Did get a reasonable average rating, actually, so might be a decent transfer there from Aston Villa as their biggest move of the summer. Spurs with a move for Brazilian right back Renan Rodriguez, a light-hearted fullback. Can play centre back actually as well, though he is only 5'4", so I don't think he'll be playing any centre back. We see he comes in with Tottenham. Leicester making a move for another relegated player in Sandri. 29-year-old Brazilian midfielder comes in from Blackburn just as a squad player. Find Celtic selling another player, Enrico Lewis, 26-year-old right back heading to Tottenham. Reading spending actually quite a bit of money, potentially upwards of, over £30 million on Emerkan Gurluk coming in from Brighton. Didn't spend too long at Brighton actually, came in from Leipzig. He's had quite a few moves. Now gets his shot at Reading. So he's going to be very much relied upon. We see Norwich making a move again for a Blackburn player in Eneko Olazola, a Spanish winger. Let's take a look at him. Very good, again, seems to be a characteristic. Very good on the ball, very good technically. Quick, agile with some good flair. He could be a very interesting player to keep an eye on. 2 games played so far this season and 2 assists. So he might do some really good work for Norwich. Scored 11 goals for Blackburn last season in the Prem. He could be a really, really good signing, to be honest, from Norwich. As we find Everton's biggest transfer of the window is Hiroyuki Kurata, a Japanese striker coming in from Benfica. £22.5 million and a player exchange. Just to add on with the player exchange, this is who Everton sent to Benfica. It was Julio Enciso. Hardly played for Everton, only spent 1 season there, a couple goals in the Premier League, but they use him to pick up the Japanese forward. We see a few outs from Chelsea and Manchester City, as we see Ander Berenetsia, who was a former Newcastle and Chelsea player, heading to Serie A with Atalanta. And we see Bashkim Kasemi, who is a young 20-year-old Albanian striker, leaving Man City to head to Roma. A player that actually will stay in the Premier League is Reini Breinberg, the Dutch fullback, just 26 years of age, will now come in at Leeds to be their first choice fullback after being a backup for a couple of seasons at Manchester City. So good to see that he will actually get a chance to play some football as well. If we look a little bit further down, we find Bournemouth's biggest transfer of the window is to head to Middlesbrough to pick up Shaquan Dexter. If we look at him, 21-year-old English attacking midfielder. They've taken a bit of a chance on him being their biggest move, and currently just considered a squad player, but has quite a lot of creativity about him, so could have some decent moments for Bournemouth, but we'll see how he gets on. You can see quite a few names leaving, like Brennan Johnson, though he's gone to Everton, which no, it's not Everton's biggest transfer, we just spoke about Kratter. So Everton are spending some money here. We see like some Montoya, Papetti, Porro, Langer, quite a few guys leaving the Premier League at this rate. Norwich bringing in Ridvan Yilmaz, 30-year-old Turkish left-back. Manchester United have made an interesting move. They bring in Ergusan Sakir. Obviously, Newcastle made a big transfer for that young Portuguese keeper. Man United bring in Sakir. And he is just going to be the backup. Alexander Nubel's still considered the starter at the moment. But Sakir gets a new place to sit on the bench, at least, I guess. We see Fulham with a transfer for Pedro Brazao, a 28-year-old attacking midfielder coming in from Sporting Lisbon. And Southampton with Morten Frendrup, a 30-year-old midfielder, Danish midfielder coming in from Genoa. Past that, we're getting towards some of the smaller transfers. I say smaller, we're still over 10 million, to be fair. It's been a pretty busy window then, all in all. So Nathan Patterson heading to Wolves from Reading. I think, though, that's roughly about it. Keane Lewis Potter's heading to Bournemouth. So there are some intriguing players moving around in the lower fees. But the standout move, definitely Jude Bellingham. And now we head to look at a very, very early in the season Premier League table. And there is one side with 3 wins from 3, and it is Leicester City. I don't know how many times Leicester have been 3 for 3 at the start of the season. It feels like they do it every other year. But they're actually the only side to do it so far this season. As you can see, wins over Bournemouth, Everton and Norwich. So not the most spectacular of wins, but you've still got to win those games, and it gets them top of the league for now anyway. We see Chelsea and Aston Villa are the teams in behind. Man City actually down in 7th at the moment, having been held to 2 draws. However, they were to Chelsea and Tottenham. Maybe they're not quite as invincible as previous seasons. Who knows? Their one win was a dominant win at Ellen Road over Leeds. And speaking of Leeds, well, to be fair, nobody's on 0 points, which at this point, there's normally a few teams still on 0. Burnley are bottom, but they have had a draw with Spurs, alongside losses to Liverpool and Sheffield United. So a pretty tricky start for them. It's going to be very interesting when Burnley play Manchester United, with Cristiano Ronaldo in charge at Turf Moor. That would be an unbelievable situation. We see Leeds a point against Bournemouth, which is also Bournemouth's only point so far. And then West Ham and Fulham also on just 1 point. Spurs off to a shocker of a start. Just 2 points, including a loss to Norwich, which is Norwich's only points of the season. But they have also drawn with Manchester City, but then also drawn with Burnley. So 1 decent result and 2 really, really bad ones. Early on player stats wise, Erling Haaland, 5 in 3 for him. And then we see Richard, a Brazilian winger for Newcastle. Don't know when he joined. £12 million last year. Played bit part in his first season. Or actually may have come in January. He may have been a January signing. I'm not 100% sure. 17 games, played pretty well then. And has taken a step up here early this season. Vinicius also on 3 for Chelsea. See Bruno Fernandes still racking up the assists at 36 years of age. Turns 37 in 5 days. And then Kelleher, the only man with more than 1 clean sheet. In fact, unbelievably, no, that doesn't make sense, because Reading have lost to Chelsea. But Kelleher has 2 clean sheets, and Ward has 1. So that means that Callum Ward went in goal at some point. Did he come off the bench? He did. Slightly cheating on Callum Ward's part there, but it's got him on the list. I don't think we'll ever see him again in any list whatsoever, but he's here for now. Man City's new keeper, by the way, Oliver Dovin? Is he actually the new keeper, or is Ederson just not feeling it? No, Ederson is the keeper. He's played in all 3 games, but not kept a clean sheet yet. He's kept 1 clean sheet. So again, there's been a sub-appearance. The keeper stuff's getting very bizarre in this. But the next plan of action is to simulate ahead to November, where we'll get another look at the Premier League table, where we'll be roughly 9 or 10 games in, so 6 or 7 further along. And then we'll actually get into the team stats and player stats on the season so far as well. We're now at the 4th of November, and we're going to start off with some managerial movements. One quite early on in the season, Phil Neville sacked by West Ham. That was an extremely quick move. Mid-September he was gone, and is replaced by Bournemouth's Eddie Howe. So that left Bournemouth needing a new manager. They went and got Josip Ilicic from Fulham. So now Fulham need a new manager. So a little bit of a merry-go-round going on there. But little note, West Ham now managed by Eddie Howe and Bournemouth now managed by Josip Ilicic. And so we take a look at the Premier League table, 10 games in, and, well, Manchester City have won all 7 games since the last stop-off point. Wins over the likes of Manchester United in the Manchester Derby. They beat Leicester, Sheffield United, a 4-1 win over Everton. And Man City looking near on as dominant as ever. Chelsea have the potential to get within 1 point, so not too bad on their part. Their one loss was at the Emirates to Arsenal, and we know about that draw to Manchester City. Leicester still hanging on in there, though, on 22 points, 3 ahead of Liverpool in 4th. So not a bad effort from Leicester. And their only losses are to Spurs and Manchester City, and a 4-4 draw with Sheffield United, which that might be game of the save so far. If we look to the bottom end of the table, it's actually Fulham propping up the league. So Josip Ilicic taking his chance to get to Bournemouth and get out of a relegation battle for now. Leeds, the only team without a win. We knew Leeds were potentially a relegation candidate this season, and we see that Everton are back here again. So Everton and Leeds, certainly not safe this season. We see the likes of West Ham still down here, Burnley and Bournemouth, and Aston Villa. What a drop-off that is. They had 7 points at the first stop-off, and now they have 9. Really? Only draws against Reading and Burnley, and then 5 defeats. Although they have been, I suppose only the Southampton defeat is a little bit of a questionable one. Sheffield United not going well either, although 2 games in hand could literally have them in like 6th. So keep that in mind. Norwich going pretty well, to be fair. They've got a game in hand to get as high as 6th as well. So maybe keep an eye on Norwich and Sheffield United. Reading, great to see. Man United, what's going on there? Will we have more of a competition for Europe this season? That would be so much better to see if we get a lot more teams battling it out for the top 7 positions. But looks like Manchester City and Chelsea might be battling it out again. Leicester being the next closest competition is very interesting. We'll take a quick look at the team details, just with the goals and the conceded again. Manchester City in their regular position of topping this chart with 25 goals scored as a team, with Chelsea in second on 22. Bottom of this, Fulham and Leeds, just 3 Premier League goals in 10 games. That feels like record lows. That is unbelievably bad. And for 2 teams to have done that seems ridiculous. If we look at conceded, it's actually a 3-way tie, with Chelsea, Manchester City and Spurs all conceding just 8. And then Arsenal and Norwich, they're on 10. What a run for Norwich. Their defence is playing brilliantly with just 10 conceded. If we look at most conceded, it's Everton averaging 2 a game at the moment, with West Ham and Fulham conceding 19 each. And then we move into the player detailed stats, and we start with goals scored, and it's 2 Manchester City players, and it is absolutely the 2 you expect. Erling Haaland with 10 in 10, Benjamin Sesko with 9 in 10. They've brought about 19 of Manchester City's 25 goals so far in the Premier League. Haaland and Sesko just keep getting better. Even though Sesko's technically scoring less, they have been absolutely insane. It's Kylian Mbappe in behind with 7, and then Jarasend of Wolves with 6. He has honestly been superb for them since he joined. I know there was the relegation in there, and he was part of that, but I think he still had a double-digit scoring season then. So he was certainly not to blame. We look a little further down, we start to see a few more interesting names. We see David Peña, who is a player that I mentioned in the recap video. Just a 20-year-old French forward who was bought for really cheap from Athletic Bilbao. Did net 12 times last season. Already 5 in 10 this year, so might be on to beat his previous best. We also go down a little bit more. We see a few more names that we're maybe not so familiar with. But looking at the new gen side of things, interesting that Prettel's actually got 4 goals for Liverpool. And he's actually tied alongside Ansu Fati and Paredes for top scorer at the club. We see Nico Williams with 4 in just 4 games, which is extremely impressive. Ben Jackson is here for Southampton, a 25-year-old forward that came in from Liverpool last season for 16.5 million. To be fair, again, 12 goals last season for him, so he was very close to being in that top 20 list, but appears in it now with 4 in his first 9, so he's doing okay. You see Mohamed Amoura, I think a player that we've also looked at as well. This is a player we're not familiar with. Jomo Serrero, playing for Burnley, a South African striker that came in from AC Milan after coming through the Mamelodi Sundowns Academy, is actually wanted by Norwich and Celta Vigo because he wants a better contract. And he's got very good first touch, very good dribbling, very creative player, but he's actually scoring goals, which is quite interesting. No assists on the season, but 4 goals. He's kind of taken the fine, I'll do it myself approach. Actually, here's a new player for Chelsea. Breakthrough prospect, Mexican forward, who they've just bought this summer for 8.25 million. Benny Granulati. 4 appearances, 3 goals. Now this very much looks like the Lukaku replacement. Also, he looks absolutely insanely good. Breakthrough prospect is right. We may have to get used to this name. We might be seeing a lot of him in the near future and in years to come. We head down to assists, and Bruno Fernandes is still controlling play at Manchester United. Now 37 years of age. He's ahead of a 34-year-old Federico Chiesa, who has 5 assists. Interesting that Martin Satriano actually more on the assist side of things this season with 4 rather than the goal scoring. We also see Morten Frendrup, who is a new signing by Southampton with 4 assists, and Martin Odegaard with 4 to his name, along with Shaquan Dexter, who again was another new signing. I said this was a bit of a risk from Bournemouth, but so far, 2 goals and 4 assists in his first 10 appearances. Not a bad start for Mr. Shaquan Dexter, just 21 years of age as well, so that could be a very good move in the end. Maybe one that I've slightly underplayed by Bournemouth. If we look at key passes, we find a West Ham player topping that one in Christian Volpato. Yasser Asprilla back up there for Arsenal, which is nice to see, alongside Angelo and Shaquan Dexter is up there on key passes as well. The chances created chart, we actually see 2 Liverpool players topping that one in Pedro Pretel and Harvey Elliott, along with Aaron Molinas, Elias Solberg, and Zakiga Lane, who was a new signing by Reading, there on 5 each as well. If we look to dribbles made, we actually find Richard leading the way, with Lane in second. So 2 new gen guys at the top of that chart, with Harvey Elliott, Jeremy Pino, Tino Livramento still at Leicester, and an interesting 21-year-old winger for Fulham who was signed this summer in Gerard Tons, who's actually had a pretty good start to his Premier League career. Still young as well, so maybe we could see Tons further on down the line as well. If we head to the defensive side of things, we find Dodo with the most tackles won so far this season for Manchester United. Interestingly, Mr. Arandino is there for Chelsea, kind of taking the Kylian Mbappe role. So I wonder if they've pushed Mbappe up front and put him on right mid or right wing, just out of interest. Doesn't seem that they've done that, but then again, oh, they're both injured. Ah, okay, so slight issue there. That's why Granulati's played so much, I guess. These injuries to Mbappe and Arandino. And it's led to Rafael Leao and Benny Granulati going up front. It's a very good team. Another 4-4-2 side, though, by the way, which is so interesting to me that so many sides are playing 4-4-2 in 2031. It has made a big comeback. If we look at key tackles, we see Dodo topping that chart. He's got a few friends with him, actually, on 4 key tackles each. We see the likes of Milos Kerkez, who we've seen a few times. We see Matthias Romani, an Argentinian centre-back for Everton, who was just signed, actually, for just over £5 million. He's been okay, not brilliant so far, but is only 22 years of age, so Not too bad an effort there. We see Ruben Diaz, Axel Disasi on the older end of things, with Roger Ibanez as well. If we look at interceptions made, Tariq Lamptey is making himself a little home at the top of this one. He's got a few guys in behind in Daniel Cusero, Konrad Gruskowski, and Musa Wagwe in behind there. Blocks, we've got Jordan Zamora. Clearances is quite an interesting one because it's a Vietnamese player. And I did mention him, I think, either a year or two ago, that he must be the first Vietnamese Premier League player in Pham Thanh Nam. And he's actually been reasonably decent, to be fair to him. Was pretty good for Sheffield United, although didn't play all that much, but was quite young. Had an okay season in the Championship with Fulham without playing a whole lot, but has become the regular starting a regular starting player in this Fulham side. Is he actually playing centre-back? Which is quite interesting. He is. He's playing alongside Alfie Dorrington at the back. So, interesting pairing there. We'll see how Fulham get on as we go further in. But Thanh Nam is doing very well on the clearances side of things. You see, he's also leading shots blocked as well. So actually he's having a pretty darn good season. And to cap it off, we'll take a look at the goalkeepers. We find Edison topping clean sheets with 5. 38 years old now. Juan Musso in second, 37 years of age. So he's tied with Trubin and Kelleher. And then you got the likes of Ramsdale, Safanov, Traore, and Josh Griffiths in behind, actually, for Bournemouth, with 3 clean sheets as well. And if we take a look at the goals prevented, it's Matvei Safanov having a very, very good season so far with Norwich, though he has suffered an injury. So he's only played 8 of the games. Conceded just 8 goals as well. He's been very, very good. Kelleher just in behind there, and 2 Spurs keepers in Alvaro Fernandez and Christian Hermansson getting in on the chart as well. Musa Wagwe has been in goal. So an interesting situation's happened at Southampton at some point. See Ramsdale and Bursic are in here, Newball, Etienne Green. Quite a few keepers not having the best of times. Dominic Grief for West Ham has been awful. I mean, a 6.8 average rating says he's been okay. He has got 2 clean sheets. The 17 conceded in the other 7 games is pretty darn bad. And his expected goals prevented is minus 4.5. That's pretty shocking. But that's how we stand at the start of November. Man City top the way once again, looking for their 5th straight Premier League title. We are now going to move on to the start of January to open up the January transfer window and also have a look at how the European group stages have gone. We've now moved on to the 1st of January, so we have ticked over to 2032. Actually, something that I haven't checked yet in this save is the Ballon d'Or award. And to be honest, unsurprisingly, it's just been handed between Kylian Mbappe and Erling Haaland for quite a while. Though, Kevin De Bruyne actually won it in 2022, which is quite interesting. Messi in 2021, which was his, the last one that he got. And then the Kylian Mbappe reign started in 2023, 2024, 2026, 2027, 2029, and 2031. I make that 6 Ballon d'Ors for Kylian Mbappe, as he's just won that 6th one literally like today in save. So congratulations to Kylian Mbappe on that one. Erling Haaland has won a couple of Ballon d'Ors, and there was one for Mo Salah as well in 2025, just ahead of Pedri and Lukaku. So the fact that Mbappe and Haaland didn't even appear in that one is quite interesting. If we look at the 2022 one, Haaland was actually 2nd with Kai Havertz in 3rd, which is certainly interesting. As we mentioned, the one that's just gone, Mbappe won it, Haaland was 2nd, and it was actually Phil Foden in 3rd, so not a bad effort there. Trying to see if we actually spot any new gen players. Benjamin Sesko was 3rd in 2030, and he was actually 3rd in 2029 as well, and 2028. Poor Benjamin Sesko. The man was so good and yet still didn't win a Ballon d'Or. It looks like we haven't had any new gen players yet up for the Ballon d'Or award. So be interesting to see when that starts happening. It's going to be soon. Getting back on task though, and we return to the European competitions now that the group stages have concluded here in the 1st of January. We go down, we find Group H in the Europa Conference League, and Sheffield United do indeed come second in their group, 2 points behind Sporting Lisbon, and actually end up drawing 4 games. They draw both games with Sporting Lisbon and both with Amanoia Nicosia as well, which means they only finish 1 point ahead of the Cypriot side. It got close. The 2 wins over Inverness were very helpful. And Sporting Lisbon, literally the only difference between Sporting Lisbon and Amanoia Nicosia, or Amanoia Nicosia, was a 1-0 Lisbon win in Portugal. And that's the only reason they finished top, and the only reason the Nicosia finished 3rd. But Sheffield United do advance. However, that does mean that they're playing in the first knockout round. So taking a look at it, they will play Israeli side Maccabi Haifa, a game that I believe they should win realistically. I don't see any other English side, so I'm assuming Liverpool and Spurs got through, but let's take a look. So checking out the Europa League group stages, Liverpool do indeed do what I expected them to do, and they go 6 for 6, conceding just once and averaging 3 goals a game. Not a bad run for them. They had a 4-0 over FK Partizan Belgrade, and that was in Belgrade as well. That's a very impressive result. They put 4 on Standard Liège in Belgium as well, so actually playing better away from home than they did at home. Liverpool walk the group, they'll head into the last 16 stage. So we won't see who they play yet. We scroll down right to the bottom, we find Tottenham's group, and they actually do top that one as well by 4 points, 4 wins and 2 draws. The draws being 2 1-1s with Stade Rennes, who actually miss out on going through to Feyenoord, which is quite interesting. But Spurs and Liverpool will advance straight into the last 16. And finally, it's the Champions League group stage, starting off with Group C. And to my surprise, Arsenal win Group C ahead of Inter Milan, and PSG are knocked down into the Europa League. Arsenal winning 4 of the games. That one loss was a 3-0 defeat in Milan, and they had a 1-1 draw in Paris against PSG. But the home legs of those fixtures, Arsenal won both of them against Inter Milan and PSG. 2 wins over Slavia Prague, which were expected as well. I mean, Arsenal topped the group, which is a heck of an achievement there. It was Manchester City in Group D, and it wasn't all their own way. They do top it, but only by 2 points ahead of Wolfsburg. There was a 3-2 loss in Nice, and pair that with a 1-1 draw in Wolfsburg as well, or against Wolfsburg rather, meaning they pick up 13 points, just 2 ahead of Wolfsburg and 4 ahead of OGC Nice. So certainly wasn't all their own way, but they do advance through. As we head down to find Chelsea in Group F, they actually go 6 for 6 in their group, which I maybe didn't fully expect, but it doesn't shock me either. They had a 4-0 win away at Besiktas, along with a 4-1 win at home against Besiktas as well. Just 2 goals conceded in there. Very impressive from Chelsea. And Manchester United in Group H actually topped their group as well and only dropped 2 points. And strangely, I think they did this before, didn't they? Only dropped 2 points in 1 draw, but it was to a side that only got 1 point in the whole group. So, almost a bit of charity work to Torino there. But Atletico Madrid will head through with Manchester United. 4 points behind them, though. So, United maybe a challenger. Might be better than I thought they were. But we'll take a look at the last 16 stage with all 4 sides advancing through as group winners. Arsenal will take on Porto. Manchester United versus RB Leipzig. Man City get into Milan, and Chelsea will play Atletico Madrid. I honestly believe that all 4 sides can advance through, and we could be on for another very English set of quarterfinals, but we'll find out when we get to the April stop-off. And with the European group stages covered, we do make our return to the Premier League. And we knew that Fulham currently had a caretaker manager. They have hired Gini Wijnaldum. So he returns to the Premier League. He decides to leave Brighton instead of trying to get them back to the Premier League. He decides to just bring himself back with Fulham. But there have been a few more managerial sackings since the November stop-off. 2 of them were only a week later. Actually, not even a week. They were a few days later. Marcelo Gallardo sacked by Leeds and Gabriel Heinze sacked by Everton. They have since been replaced by Daniele De Rossi, becoming Leeds United manager, ex-Roma player, ex-Roma manager in the save, but joins from Fiorentina, currently disappointed at how things are going. I'm imagining Leeds are probably still in the bottom 3. I haven't looked at the table yet. I've missed one, actually. There were 3 sackings on the 8th of November. Niko Kovac was sacked from Aston Villa, and they've replaced him with Marcelo Gallardo, who returns to the Premier League. He was at Leeds. He literally got sacked by Leeds. So he got sacked on the 8th of November, and by the 8th of December, he had another job again. Talk about falling on your feet there for Gallardo, and he's gone to a team in a better position. So that's quite an impressive achievement from him. And we see that Everton have hired a new man that we have not seen yet in this save. American manager Pellegrino Matarazzo. Someone I've not heard of, was born in America, is part Italian as well. So he starts as Stuttgart manager, or was Stuttgart manager. Went around in Germany quite a bit. In fact, the whole time was in Germany. But he joins Everton from Hoffenheim. So we'll see how Matarazzo gets on. But he's taken on quite a difficult job at the moment. But potentially the biggest sacking so far, Manchester United sack Mauricio Pochettino mid-December. So league-wise, it must be going a heck of a lot worse than it was going Champions League-wise. Currently, United have a caretaker manager in Solomon Woods, a new gen who is their head of youth development, has been for the past year and a half. Does play a gegenpress, so maybe he'll be successful. But I imagine Man United will announce a new manager relatively soon. That's a lot of managerial changes. That's 7 so far this season. Let's take a look at how the Premier League table stands at the moment. We might have a title battle. It looks like Man City are reasonably clear at the top, but Chelsea have 2 games in hand to go level with Manchester City. Man City still haven't lost a game yet, but they have been held to 5 draws, which hasn't helped. And Newcastle, I said that Newcastle had to do something soon. They're starting to do it, and they're doing it off the back of Amora, who's got 9 goals for them. Newcastle up in 3rd, though Arsenal do have a game in hand to go level on points. A very interesting situation there. Newcastle trying to get Champions League football. Liverpool in 5th have actually played the most games out of nearly any team. It's Aston Villa also at 20 games, and they're just in 11th. But Leicester are definitely competing in there. Maybe not for Champions League, but certainly Europa League spots. And then Spurs are a little bit further back, as are Manchester United. It's very difficult to tell exactly where everyone is with the just vast amount of differing fixtures played. Some have played 20 and some have played as low as 17. But we'll take a look at the bottom of the table as well. And it's Leeds who are in massive, massive trouble. Just 1 win on the season, which was actually a home win over Arsenal. I don't know how that's happened. 11 points on the table. 11 points so far in the table, rather. 6 points adrift of Norwich, who actually have a game in hand as well. And we see Everton and Bournemouth on 16 points. Much closer to safety, but again, Norwich do have that game in hand. Burnley still in a little bit of trouble. Reading have fallen down the table. They're on just 19 points and not exactly safe. And then Fulham and West Ham with 20 points, certainly not safe either. Sheffield United have a couple of games in hand to pull themselves clear. But it's not quite been as good a season for Sheffield United. But then again, when they play those games in hand, should they win those, they might be in a pretty good position. We're going to get a better reading of things once teams start matching up on games played. But if we take a look very quickly at the player stats, Erling Haaland with 17 goals. He's just getting better. Benjamin Sesko in second on 12. So it's a little Manchester City Golden Boot competition. Bruno Fernandes still leads assists with 9. And we see Ederson leading clean sheets with 9 as well. So Man City leading the way on a lot of things, though Bruno Fernandes still wants to keep his assist crown. What we're going to do now, we're going to jump ahead another month. We're going to get through the January transfer window. We'll take a look at what transfers do happen and how the Premier League table looks a month on, where hopefully it'll look a bit more level. So we're a month further down the line now at the 3rd of February 2032. And taking a look at who Manchester United ended up hiring, they bring in Luis Enrique, who leaves Barcelona for Manchester United. We have already seen Luis Enrique in the save at Arsenal, where he spent about 2.5 to 3 years. Did okay with them, but now comes in at Manchester United at a time where United are fighting for their European lives at the moment. Champions League might be their only hope of actually winning anything, which is kind of weird. But I suppose they've got the FA Cup and League Cup as well. I don't actually know. If you win the Champions League, do you automatically get back in? I'm not 100% sure that's a thing, but he's going to try and get them back into the European places anyway. There is a very interesting move, though, managerially, because Alfred Schroeder has left Newcastle. Last we checked, Newcastle were 3rd in the Premier League table and going very well. But Schroeder has replaced Enrique at Barcelona. So it's going to be intriguing to see who Newcastle end up hiring. They need a big name. They need a big manager, a talented manager to come in to keep this run going. But let's take a look at the Premier League table before we get into looking at transfers. And maybe a little surprisingly, Chelsea are top. Manchester City have since lost a game, and it was to Norwich. Norwich up in 12th, having a reasonably decent season. But Manchester City not top of the Premier League. And you see Newcastle are in such a good position for Champions League football. 8 points clear of Leicester with a game in hand, and 9 clear of Liverpool, who have played the same amount of games. This is seriously Newcastle's best shot to make the top 4. If we look a little further down, as mentioned, Leicester up in 5th still, so they're having a very good season under Arne Slot, who's having a much happier time in his second go-around with Leicester. We see Manchester United still fighting for 7th place with Tottenham. Sheffield United have recovered really well, actually. They're now level with Manchester United on points. And Southampton having another decent season, along with Wolves. Wolves and Southampton have been much better these past 2 or 3 seasons. They've been pushing the top half, which is good to see. We see Villa still struggling a little bit in 13th. And actually only 4 points clear of Bournemouth in the relegation zone. So Villa are certainly not safe. I think if you look from them down, is going to be the relegation battle for this season. I think Leeds might be done, though. Leeds really look like they are done and dusted. 10 points adrift of Fulham. I think 19th and 18th are certainly still to play for. Everton are not dead, only 4 points behind Fulham. Bournemouth just 2 back. It is much easier to look at the table now that everyone's played 24, except for Arsenal and Leicester who have played 25. That last table was very difficult to try and surmise anything from it. But we can see there is definitely a relegation battle. There's a title battle. Thank goodness we haven't seen one of those for a little while. We'll see if it's still going by the time we get to April. And Newcastle, what a chance for them. But let's get into the transfers then. What have we had happen? We've had Newcastle actually sell a player to Spurs for £54 million in Matteo Vitti. So he's gone from Chelsea to Newcastle to Spurs. And is only considered a squad player, despite the £54 million price tag and going on to £120,000 a week. Hasn't played for Spurs yet, but he literally joined yesterday, which I believe was deadline day, so can't really have a go at him for that one. But Matteo Vitti to Tottenham is interesting. And then Manchester United back splashing the cash again. It's not worked in the Premier League so far this season, but Denilson Pires, Portuguese 22-year-old striker, looks pretty darn good. Isn't very good at I was going to say isn't very good at heading. He's good at heading, he just can't jump. But very quick, good on the ball, very good dribbling. I mean, he's got a lot to do. He's getting a lot of weight on his shoulders, though he is just a squad player. That is a very big transfer fee. If we look a little further down, we actually have to go quite a bit further. We find Luis Fabiano leaving the Premier League, a 24-year-old Brazilian new-gen winger, heading off to Barcelona. Though we do find Arsenal making a signing in German winger Karol Zareba, coming in from Bayer Leverkusen early in the window. Again, just considered a squad player, but has had 3 starts since he joined, and has actually scored a goal as well. He's not had a great average rating, but he has popped up with a goal. We find Sheffield United at it again as they continue their push for European football, except it's a wonder kid centre-back in Ukraine's Dmytro Polyansky. Already 7 international caps for Ukraine at just 20 years of age. Has long throws, which is quite interesting. Looks pretty decent, especially for being just 20, which I've said like 4 times at this point. Through the Shakhtar Donetsk Academy, hasn't played an awful lot, though really did break through this season, has been playing pretty well. And gets a move to Sheffield United for £30 million. We'll see how he develops. Well, this has been Sheffield United's tactic, and it has worked really well. In bringing in lots of experienced players, but mixing that in with some young talents as well, to allow them to develop using the older players to help them develop. We see Spurs making a £24 million move for Blackburn left-back James Tizard, just 23 years of age. So we're starting to see now a lot more new-gen signings, and a lot of them being for high fees as well, as he's going to move in and become Spurs' starting left-back straight away. Had a pretty torrid time of things in the Premier League last season. Hasn't been that brilliant, to be honest, in the Championship either. But he's going to get a shot with Spurs, which is quite interesting. We see Man United again spending some money, £23 million on Said Yusuf, a Tanzanian left-back. If you can tell me another Tanzanian Premier League player from history, good luck. Said Yusuf might be the first. Hasn't played yet. But when he does, that's going to be a Premier League first. Comes in from Hertha Berlin, where he was playing pretty well, to be fair. 13 Bundesliga games so far this season. It's certainly interesting. Tanzanian, not a nationality I expected to see. We see Everton selling a player in Kylian Cisse, a Belgian left-back who's headed off to Lazio. What else can we find as we go down? Mohamed Ali Cho has actually left Reading. He's gone to the Championship with Brentford. Had 4 in 20 games in the Premier League this season, just the 5 the season before. So, going to try and find his feet at the Championship level again with Brentford. Go down a little bit further. Another Sheffield United signing. So they've been a little bit busier. And it's back to the sort of 30 age bracket again. Santi Ramos Mingo, an Argentinian centre-back coming in from Mönchengladbach. Played a little bits here and there. Just the one appearance this season off the bench where he didn't even play long enough to get an average rating. But the previous seasons where he'd sort of played bit part, he was solid when he did play. So I think that's what they're going to be hoping to get from him in this time. See Gaston Perez leaving Manchester United, a Uruguayan fullback. I'm forgetting how to speak, apparently. Go down a little bit further. Can we find a lot else? Pedro Lopez heading to Gladbach as well. We see Joe Gelhardt getting a move to the Premier League. Now 29 years of age. Coming in from Watford to Bournemouth. Hasn't played a lot of Premier League football. The occasional appearance for Leeds. Actually was in an exchange deal and spent one season at Southampton, only playing 6 times. Now gets at least half a season attempt at the Premier League, and he's Bournemouth's hope to try and keep them up. I'm not sure that's going to work out too well. We see a player leaving in Youssouf Maleh, a 33-year-old Moroccan midfielder, heading to the Championship with Brighton, actually. And we'll get a couple more transfers in. We see Ian Martson heading from Leeds to Reading, a player we have seen a little bit in this save so far, Dutch fullback. Now at Reading, okay. I mean, he probably knows that Leeds are likely to go down, so jump the ship while you can. Reading also bringing in Enzo Lefebvre, 32-year-old French midfielder coming in from Porto. Quite an interesting one there. So Reading trying to get as good a finish as they can this season. Probably just trying to keep themselves safe, mostly. Actually, West Ham have sold Louis Sibley. He's headed off the Championship to Brighton as well. We find a Norwich transfer right at the bottom here. Ken McMiniman. That's a great name. Ken McMiniman, 26-year-old English fullback, heading to Norwich to be their regular starter. Obviously, a very late transfer, though, on deadline day. Hasn't made his debut yet. But we've seen the Premier League table. I mean, a little bit on the player stats. Haaland has hit 20 goals already, which is unbelievable. Hugo Felix having another really good season for Norwich with 10 assists. And Trubin has pulled level with Ederson for clean sheets at 11 each. And Fernando with 10. So he's been a brilliant addition for Newcastle. What we're going to do now, we're going to simulate ahead to the start of April. We're going to take a look at how the knockout stages have gone for the European competitions so far, and then get back to the Premier League, see how the table's shaping up towards the run-in, and also get back into the team and player stats. We've moved on to April the 1st, and we're going to start off by looking at the European knockout stages. Sheffield United still representing the Premier League in the Europa Conference League. They came through Maccabi Haifa 4-3 in the first knockout round. I did say they probably would. I think that's closer than I expected it to be. But the very impressive result is 4-3 over Sevilla in the last 16, which is a brilliant result for Sheffield United. They will now take on Brøndby in the quarterfinals. Brøndby being from Denmark, they overcame Victoria Pilsen in the last 16. Another tie I'd expect Sheffield United to win, though it looks like they would meet PSV in the semi-finals, which could be a very, very tricky game. But best of luck to Sheffield United if they can win the Europa Conference League. That gets them Europa League football again. We move up to the Europa League, and we only have to start off at the last 16 stage because that is where Liverpool and Tottenham came in. Liverpool ended up drawing the Young Boys, who they beat quite easily 5-0. However, they've both gotten really unfortunate, actually, Liverpool and Spurs, because Spurs ended up playing PSG in the last 16, and they crash out 3-1, and now it's Liverpool versus PSG in the quarterfinals. I think Liverpool can win that, but maybe an English club won't win the Europa League this time. PSG might make it their sole goal to prevent an English side winning it. And finally, the rundown of the Champions League last 16. We start with Arsenal, who end up actually just destroying Porto 6-1, maybe slightly surprisingly. They will take on Borussia Mönchengladbach in the quarterfinals, who ended up beating Real Sociedad 3-1. We see Manchester United getting past RB Leipzig 3-1, and they will play AS Monaco in the quarterfinals, who beat Real Madrid. So, a couple of surprising results been going down so far. Chelsea advanced through to the quarterfinals. They obviously, as mentioned, are the reigning champions of the Champions League. Beating Atletico Madrid 5-1, though, that is no small feat. That's very impressive. But they do take on Barcelona in the quarters, who came through Wolfsburg 5-2. And then Manchester City, a 7-1 demolition job of Inter Milan. So they have to take on Bayern Munich in the quarterfinals after they beat Benfica 5-2. There is a potential of an all-English Champions League semi-final. We'll find out later on if that happens. Moving back to the Premier League, though, when we see that Alfred Schroeder's replacement at Newcastle is Xavi, who makes his first appearance as a manager in the actually just his first appearance in the Premier League in general, but his first appearance as a manager in the top flight of England. He leaves Juventus to take the top job at Newcastle, and we'll see if he can keep their Champions League position run going. I mean, we'll find out if they're still third in a moment. Maybe they've even pushed on. Are they challenging Chelsea and Man City? Probably not. However, there is one more managerial change, and sadly, Cristiano Ronaldo, I think just under a year in charge of Burnley, he is sacked for poor results, and he has literally only just been replaced by Grego Sierra, a Spanish manager who comes in from Malaga. He only ended his playing career in 2029, so pretty fresh off playing. Grego Sierra, now a Premier League manager. And actually, a couple of competitions I have forgotten to mention so far. One of them only just ended, so not so much of a problem. Did forget about the Community Shield again. Manchester City have won it for a fourth straight season. It was a 1-0 win over Chelsea with a goal from Erling Haaland. But the other competition for us to take a look at is the League Cup, and it is Chelsea who win the Carabao Cup somehow. A 3-2 win over Arsenal in the final, in a game that they only had 3 shots on target to Arsenal's 8. It didn't help that Arsenal got a red card when they were already 3-1 down. Kylian Mbappe gave Chelsea the lead. Emil Smith-Rowe responded. Then Andinho and Camavinga. By 30 minutes, it was 3-1. Arsenal then had Jesus sent off, which certainly didn't help them. And then they almost had a chance at it late on. See, Jesus, pretty good player to be fair. Had a little brief spell at Rangers previous season. Starting to play a little bit for Arsenal here. Emil Smith-Rowe did get his second of the game from the penalty spot in the 89th minute, but Chelsea hang on and pick up a piece of silverware in the League Cup. And now taking another look back at the Premier League table, and that might not be the only piece of silverware that Chelsea pick up, because they are 6 points clear of Manchester City with 8 games to go. Man City have lost a few games, including losing 2-1 at Stamford Bridge, which is the really big one out of those so far. We see Newcastle still holding on to third, 6 points clear of Arsenal in 5th, and Leicester still hanging on to the Europa League spot right now. Whilst Man United have got up to 7th, but they've played a game more than Sheffield United and Spurs. If we look to the bottom end of the table, Leeds, Bournemouth and West Ham, now the sides in a bit of trouble. Bournemouth and West Ham obviously have only just come back up. The only side who came up last season that are actually looking okay are Fulham. But again, they're really not safe, as they're only 3 points ahead of West Ham. The only thing going for the 5 sides above the relegation zone is that they have all got a game in hand over the bottom three. But you highly doubt that all of them are going to win. So West Ham certainly not out of it. Bournemouth not quite out of it, but they look in trouble. And Leeds, I still think they're gone, even though they have won a couple of games against Fulham and West Ham. Still think they're in quite a bit of trouble. But we'll get into the team and player stats as we do at April. Manchester City with 69 goals and Chelsea with 68 lead the way. Newcastle 57. Bottom end of things, we see Leeds with just 24 and Bournemouth with just 25. West Ham just 26. So quite a few teams not scoring a whole lot. Conceded, this is where it gets better for Chelsea. Normally this is Manchester City, but it's actually Chelsea this time with just 24 conceded. Newcastle at just 28. That new goalkeeper's been absolutely brilliant for them. And the defence is obviously solidified as well. Man City with an average of 1 goal conceded per game is still not bad, but it's probably the reason that they are not top. If we actually go down a little bit, Wolves and Fulham actually with the most conceded goals, despite being 12th and 13th. Wolves with 55, Fulham 53, West Ham have conceded 51. So the team bottom of the league, Leeds have only conceded 42. They just haven't scored. We jump across to the player statistics, starting with the Golden Boot race, and it's looking like Erling Haaland will be taking that home. He is 5 ahead of Benjamin Sesko, though he has had 5 more starts and 4 more appearances. And then you look at Kylian Mbappe, 16 goals in just 19 games. If Mbappe hadn't have gotten injured early in the season, he could seriously be challenging for a Golden Boot this year. And then we find Martin Satriano is here again. So he's had a good run of it. He's up to 15 goals. Seeing David Peña's quite nice. He's got 13. Jarosend and Jan Thielman is an interesting one. He's up there on goals as well. His real breakout season, because last year was his best with 9. He's already got 12 this season. So good to see him doing well. And Mohamed Amoura for Newcastle, their top scorer with 12. We head down to assists. Bruno Fernandes still leads the way. Now ahead of Martin Odegaard and Hugo Felix, with Edouard Camavinga just in behind that. Key passes is actually 2 players in Burnley's Angelo and Bournemouth's Shaquan Dexter. I say if Bournemouth get relegated, teams may want to look at Shaquan Dexter because he has actually been a lot better than I expected him to be. Elias Solberg just in behind them, along with Shola Shortire, who is still getting some decent key passes, rather. We get into chances created, though. It's Harvey Elliott topping the way on 17. He's got 9 assists on the year, which is pretty decent. Tommy Doyle there for West Ham with 14. And then Hugo Felix at 14 as well. But obviously 11 assists on those 14, compared to just 2 for Tommy Doyle. So a little bit unfortunate on his part. If we look to dribbles made, we find that Lane and Richard still lead the way with Jeremy Pino and actually Gabriel Martinelli just in behind them. We get to some more defensive statistics. Konrad Grzyskowski leads the way for tackles won by a long way, actually. 12 ahead of Shola Shortire. Again, a forward getting quite high up in this list. Musawagre in 3rd and Dodo 4th. Camavinga actually in 5th. So another quite interesting player to be up there on tackles. We see key tackles being led by Felix Agu, the German fullback, I believe he is. Yeah, German left back. He's actually leaving Bournemouth at the end of the season. He's having an okay time of things. Timothy Castan still playing for Leeds, age 36. So I think a relegation may well be on the cards for them. If we look at blocks, we find Ridvan Yilmaz leading the way. Demetrius Nicolau now leading the way in shots blocked. And finally, if we round it out with the goalkeepers, we take a look at conceded. Trubin with the least at 23. Alvaro Fernandez has conceded just 24, but he has played 8 games less than Trubin, which certainly helps in that respect. Osvaldo Fernando, just 27 conceded. He's been superb. And Edison at 30. Again, Kelleher just 33 conceded in 27 appearances. Almost single-handedly the reason Reading are doing well. I don't like saying single-handedly for things because it is a team game. If we look at clean sheets, Ederson's, I was going to say slip back a bit. It's still only one behind, but it's now Trubin leading the way with Osvaldo Fernando and Ederson chasing him down. Pascal Traore leading the best of the rest with 9. And finally, the XG prevented is still Matvei Safonov leading the way with Kelleher in second. We actually see Gaetan Kuke there, or Gaetan Kuk in third. He's had a reasonably decent season as Southampton starter. Fernando and Ramsdale in there as well, with Josh Griffiths actually has not had the worst time of things. Anon has played the occasional game. He's played enough to register in this statistic. If we look towards the bottom, we've actually got a lot of keepers who have done all right. Okay, Jakob Widell-Zetterstrom is a goalkeeper, however, apparently also an awkward striker, which is an interesting situation, but okay. You see Trubin here, most clean sheets, but only a 1 on XG prevented. Nubel here as well. But this sets us up nicely for the run into the end of the season. So almost every team has 7 games before we get the next pause. Some teams have 6, and we will stop off on the day of the final game of the season. We'll see if there is a title battle or not, if Man City can close that gap. There is potentially battles for Europe, but the interesting one could well be this relegation battle, because it's still, from 13th down, very competitive for who ends up going down. So we've moved ahead to the 16th of May. It is the day of the final set of Premier League fixtures of the season. And as you can see, we have a new Premier League champion. The crown falls from Manchester City's hands, or off their head, because it's probably more likely on their head. But Chelsea regain the Premier League title for the first time in 5 years. They are 7 points clear of Manchester City, and another 90-plus point season for the champions of the Premier League. Chelsea and Manchester City have been otherworldly in this save. It is Liverpool and Newcastle who appear to have confirmed Champions League football, but it's not saying they have. So I'm not fully sure what's going on there. That might be something to do with the European competitions. So we'll have to check those once we get to the full end of season. But something's definitely going on there. If we look a little further down towards 7th place, Leicester could still finish 6th, but they could also finish 8th. So a very intriguing time there. Arsenal can't catch Newcastle. So that is, the top 4 is done. The only thing is whether Liverpool or Newcastle finish 3rd or 4th. But if we take a look at Man United's fixture, they travel to Everton. And Everton potentially need a result. They're only 1 point clear of the relegation zone. Leicester head to Manchester City, who have nothing to play for. They have finished 2nd. Will they put out a second team? Probably not. So a pretty tricky game for Leicester. Spurs, who are on the outside looking in, take on Leeds. Leeds 100% have to win. I mean, the odds of Leeds not getting relegated is very, very low. I'm surprised they even have a chance, to be honest. With how far adrift they were at points, Leeds have done very well to even get to this stage. They have to beat Spurs, hope that Reading and Everton both lose, and Leeds would stay up, because their goal difference is significantly better than Bournemouth's. So even if Bournemouth won, they wouldn't stay up. But quite interestingly, actually, yeah, if you look at the bottom of the table, no one's relegated yet, which I think is a first in this save. Not even 20th is down yet. Actually, we'll get into that. We'll see who can still go down. We see that Wolves are staying up. Fulham are going to stay up. So for the first time in a couple of seasons, a team that came up will get a second consecutive Premier League season. Wait, who else came up? Bournemouth came up. Fulham came up. Oh, West Ham came up, didn't they? So two of the sides are staying up. West Ham have had a really, really good run late on. They're up to 11th. That's why I didn't see them. I didn't realise how high up they were. So they've had a really good run of things. Again, that top half split has happened. But Norwich have replaced Aston Villa as sort of the Big Ten. I didn't think I'd be saying that about Norwich, but they've hit the 50-point mark. So a brilliant season from them. But I keep getting distracted. Bottom part of the table. Who can still go down? Well, it's going to be 3 of 5 because Fulham are safe. Bournemouth and Leeds need vague miracles. I mean, Bournemouth would have to beat Fulham, which is doable, but they'd have to have Leeds not win against Spurs. Reading would have to lose because goal difference issues. Reading would have to lose to Villa, which is possible, and Everton would have to lose, and I can't find them. Where are Everton? Everton host Man United. It's possible. It feels unlikely for Bournemouth. But if those 4 things happen, Bournemouth could stay up. Leeds need 3 things to happen. They need to beat Spurs, have Reading not win against... I've already forgotten who Reading are playing. Aston Villa. Although, again, goal difference-wise, it would probably be better if Reading lost. And then Everton would have to lose against Manchester United. What do Reading need? Reading would require potentially just a draw if other results went their way. Because if Everton lost to Manchester United and Leeds and Bournemouth don't win, neither of them wins, then Reading could stay up with just a draw. Who are Burnley playing? Burnley host Arsenal. So I'm trying to figure out how Burnley go down. Everton would have to draw. It would be a Burnley loss, Everton draw, and a Reading win would send Burnley down. There's quite a few different ways the relegation battle can go, which is certainly interesting. But again, safe sides, the likes of Norwich, West Ham, Villa, Southampton, they're all fine in the mid-table. Taking a very, very quick look at the player stats, Erling Haaland has won the Golden Boot again. 29 goals. Can he get a 30th? As we mentioned, Man City hosts Leicester. Will Haaland get to 30? Martin Odegaard and Bruno Fernandes having a battle for most assists. Aaron Dino actually ends up with 12 with a game to go. So maybe he can get in there as well. There's a battle for the Golden Glove as well. Trubin has 15, but Fernando and Ederson are only 1 behind. So maybe something can happen there. What do you do actually? Did I check? Yeah, I believe, we went through managers, didn't we? We've been through that. So, the only thing to do now is to move 2 weeks on, make sure that everything is finished, and then we're going to go through the European competitions. We're going to go, then just return to the Premier League and see who goes down and who gets who gets what European football. It's a bit all over the place right now. So here we are then, 2 weeks later on the 30th of May, and we're going to start off with the European club competitions, as we normally do, once the season has concluded, and Sheffield United will play Europa League football next season because they have won the Europa Conference League. Sheffield United win a European competition. I did not expect that to happen at the start of this save. They end up getting past Bromby 5-3 in the quarterfinals. then a 3-2 very close win over PSV, and finally a 2-1 win in the final against Roma. That is a very impressive win over a Roma side that I'd imagine is pretty darn decent. They actually went behind to, let's see who this guy is, to a Mattia Bava goal. Not one of the star men of Roma, just a squad player, but he netted to give Roma the lead. But then it was goals from Gonzalo Ramos. I didn't even know he was here. He was brought in as part of an exchange deal. Ended up scoring 11 Premier League goals, by the way, but scored in the Europa Conference League final. And then who else but Martin Satriano to give Sheffield United the win, to win them their first piece of silverware in the save and get them Europa League football next season. By the way, Roma actually won this just 2 years ago, so they were trying to go 2 for 3. Sheffield United are your champions. It's even more English success in the Europa League. The English sides are way too overpowered in Europe in Football Manager, have been for a while. Liverpool actually do overcome PSG 3-2 in the quarterfinals before seeing off Celta Vigo 2-1 in the semi-finals, and then playing Shakhtar Donetsk in the final, a 2-0 win in that game. We'll take a look again at goal scorers. It was an Ansu Fati double, and Shakhtar. A 0.55 XG is quite high for only having 2 shots and 0 on target, so there was a decent chance in there somewhere. But Liverpool, completely dominant in the Europa League final, and they will play Champions League football next season. They finished top 4 anyway, so that doesn't really change much. And finally, we check out how the Champions League went down. And actually, 2 Premier League sides went out in the quarterfinals. Maybe a little surprisingly, Manchester United crashed out 3-2 to Monaco in the quarterfinals. So Monaco returning to a Champions League semi-final. I think they made one a few years ago in real life. I can't exactly remember. I feel like that happened. But they end up losing to Arsenal 4-2 in the semi-final after Arsenal got past Gladbach 3-2. So Arsenal somehow making the Champions League final. Not exactly sure how that happened. I think that's why there was the question marks over the 3rd and 4th positions being Champions League. Because if Arsenal had won the Champions League final but finished 5th, they would have got one of those Champions League spots, and 4th would have become Europa League, I think. That's the only reason I can come up with for that being question marks previously. However, it doesn't matter because Manchester City gain the Champions League back. They beat Bayern Munich 4-2 in the quarterfinals, then a 6-2 win over a Barcelona side that knocked out the previous holders Chelsea on penalties in the quarterfinals after a 5-all. We'll take a look at how the Arsenal-Man City final went down. And not a bad effort from Arsenal. Benjamin Sesko gave Man City the lead. It was then a response from Luis Antunes, a French attacking midfielder at Arsenal, someone we haven't really spoken about. Came through the Toulouse Academy. Hasn't really done too much for Arsenal. Has been a fringe player, but actually scores in a Champions League final. And then, of all people, to score a Champions League winning goal, Jeremy Frimpong, former Manchester City Academy player, left to Celtic, long-time Bayer Leverkusen, returned to Manchester City just this season and ends up scoring a Champions League winning goal. What a story for Jeremy Frimpong. Full circle. Unbelievable scenes that. But it has been, the past 6 seasons, it has just been Chelsea and Manchester City handing each other the Champions League trophy. But with that out of the way, we return to the Premier League and we find that, for one, Liverpool and Newcastle's Champions League spots are indeed confirmed after Arsenal lost the Champions League final. Arsenal and Manchester United will play Europa League football next season after United confirm it with, what was that game again? With a 2-0 win over Everton. Spurs steal 7th place on the final day. Heartbreak for Leicester. Leicester can only get a 1-1 draw at the Etihad. Tottenham beat Leeds 2-1, meaning that Leeds are relegated for the first time in this save, mere years after a Champions League qualification finish. An unbelievable drop-off for Leeds to see them finish bottom of the Premier League. Sheffield United will get European football, as previously mentioned, despite finishing 9th. Leicester miss out on goal difference, gutting for them. And if we look at the relegation battle, unsurprisingly, Bournemouth and Leeds do go down, but a brilliant effort from Bournemouth. They get a 1-0 win over Fulham, and they are only relegated on goal difference. And Everton's loss to Manchester United means that they are relegated from the Premier League for the first time. Wow. Leeds and Everton go down in the same season, and Reading survive by the absolute skin of their teeth with a 1-1 draw at Villa Park. If this was a late Reading goal, no. It was Ben Brereton Diaz in the 5th minute with Reading's only shot on target of the whole game. Wow. Brereton Diaz keeps Reading in the Premier League. Absolute skinny of teeth stuff. Fulham actually, with that Fulham loss, they finished only 3 points ahead of the relegation zone. They were safe anyway. Burnley could have gone down. They actually got a 2-1 win over Arsenal, so very impressive from Burnley in order to stay up. But, wow. Everton and Leeds gone from the Premier League for at least one season. I feel like they're two sides that could well just bounce back quite quickly. But we will get into the team and player stats to finish off the video. Chelsea end up topping the goal-scoring chart with 90, with Man City on 88. No one else can even get close to these sides, which is just a little bit hilarious, to be honest. Least goals ends up being Bournemouth with just 34. They came so close to staying up. Everton with just 35 and Leeds 36. Obviously, Everton, Bournemouth, Reading all finishing on the same points. Just Reading, that better goal difference, saving them. We look to conceded. It's also Chelsea with just 34 conceded. When you top goals scored and least conceded, you're probably going to win the title. So it does work out for Chelsea. Man City and Newcastle conceding just 38. Congratulations, Newcastle, on Champions League football for next season after their 4th place finish. Most conceded was Wolves, and it wasn't even close. 73 goals conceded, finished 14th. In fact, the 3 sides that conceded the most goals this season didn't go down. In fact, West Ham conceded 58 and finished 11th. So, defence, who needs it? Going into player stats, and it is another golden boot for Erling Haaland. He didn't quite hit the 30 mark. There was a goal for Man City against Leicester on the final day. Wasn't Haaland's goal, though. Kylian Mbappe ends up just 7 behind, having played in 10 less games. That would have been a very interesting battle had Mbappe not gotten injured. Sesko ends up 8 behind, though he also plays 6 games less. So again, that could have been a pretty interesting battle had Sesko and Mbappe played as many games as Haaland did. Satriano nets 20 yet again. He is so unbelievably consistent. I think he's had 5 seasons and scored exactly 24 times and got 21 in the other season. And then we see new gen players in David Pena and Mohamed Amoura getting 17 each, with Andino getting 15. So the new gens are starting to come through with goals here. Andrew Priest with 11 for Leicester alongside Armando Broja, who gets 11 as well. Richard there on 11 as well. So yeah, new gens starting to come through here now that we're 11 years into the save. When it down to assists, it's actually a draw. It remained a draw between Odegaard and Fernandes, and Andino and Hugo Felix end up with 12 each. What a first season for Andino, by the way. 15 goals and 12 assists in the Premier League. He has made that £92 million very, very worth it in his first season. If we look at key passes, sadly Bournemouth are relegated, but Shaquan Dexter, 8 assists on the season with 72 key passes. Has only been at Bournemouth for 1 year. Might be moving on quite quickly. We see Angelo in behind for Burnley and Shola Shortire there for Sheffield United. Chances created remained topped by Harvey Elliott, with Lucas Sucic in behind alongside, again, Hugo Felix. So a pretty good season from him. Very good season for Norwich, who are very much becoming Premier League regulars now, which is almost a weird sentence to say out loud. Fulham have also stayed up, by the way, so the two regular yo-yo teams in real life, 10 years on, becoming fairly stalwart Premier League sides, though Fulham only heading into their second season, so I guess that's not too much. If we look again at dribbles made, it remained topped by the same 3 players, realistically, Lane, Richard and Pino there. Aston Villa getting Gassamzadeh in there, their Iranian fullback, so not too bad for Villa, at least getting a player in somewhere. Villa just seem to have decided that they are a lower mid-table Premier League side, and that they're okay with that. That seems to be the new thing. Defending-wise, we see most tackles won is Konrad Gruszkowski for Reading, with Shola Shortire in second, slightly confusing, but okay. Camavinga there in sixth as well. I don't particularly know him as much of a defensive midfielder, but he has got 15 tackling. He can actually very much play defensive midfield, so I'm completely wrong on that front. Key tackles was led by Felix Agu for Bournemouth, but we know that he's leaving them. And Bournemouth were relegated, so we won't see much of him. Trent Alexander-Arnold, Ruben Diaz, and again, Kevin Stoyle here with 9 key tackles. So Stoyle's still playing pretty well. See Adaramola with most blocks for Fulham. Clearances was topped by Nicolau. So Bournemouth was certainly busy defensively, and you can imagine that is probably the reason that they've gone down. Most fouls was actually a draw between Dejan Tetek, Sergio Carrera, and Samuel Cassano. So interesting on that front. But we'll finish it off with the goalkeepers. Least conceded, you're starting with Trubin really. Played all but 1 game, conceding just 31. And Edison and Osvaldo Fernando conceding just 37 each in 37 and 36 games respectively. Alvaro Fernandez does only concede 28 in 26. You see the likes of Ergan Sakir, who was the regular United keeper, Aaron Ramsdale, Pascal Traore, and Kelleher in there as well. And then we'll finish it off with expected goals prevented. Matvei Safonov has a superb season for Norwich, his 3rd as the starting goalkeeper there. 34 appearances, just 48 conceded, and 7 clean sheets. He's the best in XG prevented. Aaron Ramsdale gets himself up to 2nd, with Kelleher in 3rd. See Pascal Traore there. Osvaldo Fernando's on the right side of it. See Lucas Silva, who is a young, well, I say young, 25-year-old Portuguese keeper. Still pretty young, especially for a keeper. Actually a new one. 4.3 million in January from Espanyol. Was that January? No, it would have been the summer, actually. Just late summer. Okay, so potentially a new Liverpool keeper there, but with Pascal Traore already here, don't know how much Lucas Silva's going to play, but interesting that they seem to have chosen to run with 2 keepers. You see Alexander Nubel on the right side of it, Fernandez just the right side. Looking down the bottom, not too many guys lower down because, well, There's been a lot of keepers this season, seemingly. But that is going to round up the 2031-32 season. And I think the biggest shock is Everton and Leeds relegated from the Premier League for the first time each in the save. Everton, for the first time in the Premier League era, that they will play second-tier football. This is going to make for a very interesting Premier League season next time out. With how close the relegation battles have started to become as well, you're involving a good 5, 6, and 7 teams each season as battling it out to try and stay up. Europe's still looking pretty set as the same teams, though Newcastle will have Champions League football next time out. They replace Manchester United, and Liverpool actually get back into the Champions League as well, dropping Arsenal and United into Europa League football. So those four are doing a lot of swapping around. And then Spurs sneak Europa Conference League football ahead of Leicester. Big credit to Norwich for a 10th place finish. West Ham as well in their first season back in the Premier League after one away. They get a very impressive 11th place finish. That is where we wrap up this video. If you have enjoyed it, please do hit the like button, subscribe to the channel as well. Leave your comments what you thought of the season. What are other things that I should maybe look at during the seasons? Next one coming up will be 2032-33. We have a new head of the Premier League. Can Manchester City get their crown back?